Hello again, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, and boy have I got something to show you today. Look what came in the mail. I had been traveling, and when I came home I had to go to the post office and pick up this box, which is certified mail, so I had to sign for it. It's double packed and it's just wonderful. So let's open it up, take a look, and examine it in detail, if you will. And this is a gift from a man that I never met. Now actually I showed this briefly in my this and that video, so some of you have seen it before, but here it is. It was all bubble wrap, but that's been removed, and notice the double box cost $22 to ship it, and it's from James RESTAINO in the great state of New York. Well, when I opened it up, there was a letter in with it, which I'm not going to read to you, giving an explanation, but here it is, a model of a Bridgeport milling machine in aluminum. So later that week I called James in New York, and we talked, I would say, for 45 minutes. We had a delightful conversation where I thanked him, and he told me all about his life and his career and the things that he did. And he worked for many years as an aircraft specialist, working on landing gear of large airplanes, and some of it was for the major airlines. So he had an interesting life, and he has a nice home shop, probably far better equipped than mine, and he made 8 of these in all. This is number 7. He's a lot younger than me, perhaps 10 years, but he was a little bit discouraged by what people would say when he would show them the models. And I've experienced this too, and I bet you have too, where people would say, "Oh, that's nice. How's your golf game?" Or, "You got way too much time on your hands." And he even said that someone remarked, "What is that? A telescope or a microscope?" You know, so it was discouraging. This way, I told him that thousands of people will see this and be able to appreciate it, and the work and the skill involved. In his personal life, he probably only showed this to, what, a few dozen people or something. And you get to the point when you're a machinist or a model maker or whatever it is you do, you tend not to show some people the things that you have done or you've made. You almost keep it as a private life because the comments are so discouraging. I don't know what we expect. Do we want somebody to applaud or get up? But we want them to show or at least feign some interest in it. So I'm sure that plenty of people watching right now will appreciate this. So thank you, James, ever so much. I will value this highly, and I think I'll probably put it in my wife's curio cabinet. So the model is made 90% aluminum. There's fasteners and screws and things like that, and it is 9 inches long, and the table is 5 inches. I'm using this big Stanley wooden ruler so you can see it. And in this direction we got about 3 inches, and so on. Now this model will not cut anything. That is, the motor is a dummy, but many of the parts move. The table moves in 3 axes, and many of the parts do up here, and I'm going to show you close-ups of that. This will be a long video. I hope you stick with me and appreciate it. It's slightly hard to photograph something that's shiny, and I know I should use diffused light. I know all of that. No, I don't. This is the best I can do. I do not know what scale he built this to, but he did tell me that he has a Bridgeport, and he literally measured every item on it and scaled it down in that manner. There were no blueprints. He kind of worked the way I do. He would have made notes to himself, as most of us do, And that was the way he worked. But you can see that he must have had tremendous skill and patience. So looking at the table now, you can see that there actually is a screw in there. And the table moves back and forth. And if I can lift this up a little bit here, you're going to see that there's a dovetail under there. Pretty much, well, almost exactly the way a real Bridgeport works. There's always some problems in scaling down. And some of you will know what I meant by that statement. I'm not going to try to explain it. The crossfeed or y-axis also moves, as you can see. And the little chip guard that is on every Bridgeport right here, if I can, also moves. And that, of course, protects the screw. You know what that is if you have a Bridgeport. Probably most of you do have a Bridgeport or have worked on Bridgeports, or you would not be watching this. And if you look here, also you will see that it's dovetail construction. Imagine cutting those little dovetails. The table will move up and down, the entire knee, perhaps I should say. And this is a left-hand thread, he said. Can we look under there? Perhaps. I am not going to take it apart. There are some things that I could show you if I did, but I'm not going to do that. The entire turret can be turned, and I've already loosened up the lock screw so I could move this for you. And if you had the slotting attachment, of course, it would turn all the way around like that. I have loosened these 4 screws, and you can see that the head will tilt. How awesome is that? In both directions. Not only that, but the head will nod. And you already saw there, I didn't mean to do that yet, that we can move the ram in and out. I wonder how much of that we can see. But there is, of course, a dovetail there. Now there are machining marks on here, and he said he left those on purpose. You could, of course, spend a lot of time polishing it, but that's almost dishonesty in design. I like to see the machine marks. But he did a very good job of cutting, obviously with very sharp cutters. And believe it or not, the quill will move up and down. And these were made in his spare time, all 8 of them, over a period of 1.5 or 2 years while he was working. And I'm not done. You can see this is number 7 out of the 8, and he made it in 2003. And on the bottom here, there's his name, there is, look at the little dovetail here, that's a little compartment where he keeps the wrenches that can be used in adjusting the head and all of those screws. When I was a boy, I made a lot of wood and plastic models of airplanes and cars and ships and you name it. Every store had models that you put together with glue, and the major names were Revell, Monogram, Hawk, and so on. There's some great videos on that I just discovered since I got this. And I was always fascinated by the model makers, the mold makers that did that in those factories. Now there is absolutely no interest by boys in model making. Plastic models, stores no longer stock them, and when you do find them in specialty stores, they're quite expensive. It's a man's hobby, it's not a boy's hobby. They do not have any interest in it. I have bought many plastic models for $1 or less at garage sales, still in the shrink wrap. They were presents, Christmas presents, and the boy didn't even care enough to open the cellophane. That saddened me. Also, they made it difficult. You can't buy the glue because some junkie's going to sniff it. I simply have to show you this picture on my phone. This is the great cowboy, singing cowboy star, Gene Autry, perhaps in the 40s, and he's in the foundry where this molder is using a match plate to make the sand molds to cast the cap guns. And at that time, apparently they were making them in cast iron. I know the ones that I had when I was a kid, generally I think were die cast, but they were heavy, they weren't plastic. We didn't have plastic ones, we had metal ones. I hope you find that interesting. I'm sorry for the rant, but no matter what I think about, I kind of go crazy sometimes. But getting back to the model making real quickly now, one of the big companies like Revell or Monogram or something was bought out by the other. So all of the molds, and there were hundreds of these big aluminum molds used for the injection molding, were put on a train to move to the other plant, and at some point the train derailed. A good number of the molds broke loose and ended up out in a plowed field and were packed with mud. I think most of them were salvaged, but think of the precision and then how the destruction of something like that. Probably most of the molds are long gone by now. I sincerely hope that most of you appreciate this as much as I do and would leave comments, and the comments can be left for James or me, but if you want to make a comment or compliment regarding this to James RESTAINO, be sure and mention that in the comments. I hope you like this. I already said that. I've shown that to many of my local friends already, and they did like it. They were quite enthused, but then again, they're men of similar thought processes of myself. All right, thanks again, James. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. This is TUBALCAIN.